Welcome back to Atlanta and Company. I'm Christine Pilara. It's hard to forget the torrential rains and flooding we had just a couple of weeks ago and yesterday, these horrible rains. If you weren't personally affected, chances are you have a friend or family member who was. Well, thousands of Metro Atlanta residents are now going through their water-damaged homes and trying to clean up, taking inventory, and rebuilding. Now, the key to a swift recovery is being prepared. Having a disaster preparedness plan in place can save you weeks of time and delays and thousands of dollars in denied insurance claims. Now, this week we're starting a two-part series on creating a disaster preparedness plan, and the shopping queen Fatima Medikarini is here with more on that. Good morning. So before we even talk about what insurance we should have, the first step is knowing what we have in the home, right? Taking inventory.
That's right. You can't really talk about replacing your stuff without first knowing what stuff you have. And you really need to make the effort to have a home inventory. And that can be a little bit overwhelming when you talk about, oh, taking inventory of my home, but you can just simply start with a room a week. So that's definitely something easy and manageable that you can do. And so every week you would start with one room that you would take pictures, descriptions of all the items that you have, and preferably you'll start with the rooms with the most expensive stuff first.
Wow, that makes great sense, and that way you're not feeling overwhelmed by the whole procedure. Now, you talk about doing it electronically.
Yes, you know, after a disaster strikes, you never know quite where you're going to end up, you know, if it's going to be a family member's house, close by or even far away, and you might not have access to things that might be quote-unquote paper-based.
Right.
So having things electronically will really help speed up the process. One great site is knowyourstuff.org. It's through the Insurance Information Institute, and it's a great website that has a software program and video that literally walks you through your house room by room, and you can input pictures, price information, details of all your items, and it's stored on secure servers that you can access anywhere.
Takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. And if you don't want to go that route, you can simply just take pictures and write detailed information and email it to yourself and just keep it in a special folder in your online email account too.
Okay, perfect. Now talk about updating your insurance policy. When should you do that?
You should really start to do that on a regular basis. And after taking this home inventory, that's a great time to call your insurance agent and review your home inventory with them and make sure all of the items that you have are actually covered and you're not going to have any surprises.
And speaking of surprises, why is it that many people don't even know what's covered in their plan?
Well, they don't really take the time. I know the insurance policies aren't exactly the most exciting things to read.
They're not. Yeah, you don't want to sit with a glass of wine reading your insurance policy, that's for sure.
You pretty much fall asleep at that point. But you can use your insurance agent, talk to them, ask them, you know, what is covered, what is not covered, if they have any suggestions for what might be covered, and really pay special attention to all your expensive items, whether it's custom furniture, antiques, jewelry, memorabilia that you might have. So really take the time to look at all of that and understand what is and is not covered.
Right, because like we talked about in the segment before this, when disaster strikes, I mean, you're so overwhelmed with things, you really want to have all your ducks in a row so you know you have a game plan to go to.
Right. You want to have your game plan before the game actually happens. Otherwise, it's going to be useless after the fact. And especially with insurance, it all needs to be in effect prior to the event. With flood insurance, for example, you know, a lot of people are finding out that they didn't have flood insurance, that all of the water damage is not covered. The key with water damage, too, that a lot of people are confused about is the general rule to go by is if it touches your house first, if water touches your house first, it's covered through your regular insurance, such as it would be hail and wind damage. But if it actually hits the ground first and then enters your home, that's covered under flood insurance, and that's a special insurance that you have to buy separately. It's not covered under your regular home insurance. And your flood insurance has to be in effect for 30 days before it would cover anything.
Right. Wow. So that's tricky. You really have to read the fine print.
You have to read the fine print, but use your insurance agent. Don't be afraid to ask lots of questions. And also on that website that I mentioned before, knowyourstuff.org, they do have a lot of questions that you can ask your insurance agent as a starting point to get you familiar with all the terms and concepts too, if anything that you need to change and update on your policy.
And this is something I hadn't thought of, but you recommend discussing major home improvement projects to your agent.
Yes, a lot of people do major home renovations that affect the value of their home. for example, kitchen renovations or finishing your basement, and that can really affect what will be covered and will not be covered. If you did a lot of special updates in the kitchen, for example, they might say, well, what's your proof that you actually did these? So have pictures and review that with your insurance agent and adjust your coverages to make sure that you'll be covered if a disaster strikes.
And the bottom line is you recommend talking with your agent about all of your options.
Yes, I say treat your insurance agent not as the IRS. You don't want to hide any assets. So reveal all your assets with your insurance agent. It's best to tell them more than they need to know as opposed to like holding all your cards close to the vest.
Absolutely. Fatima, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next week when we continue this series.
Yes, we'll be talking about getting your plan together, your disaster plan together.
Okay, great. After you take inventory, what's next? Well, we're going to tell you next week.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And if you would like more money saving